2024 was the most fun year of gaming I had in my life. Every time I picked up the controller, I had such a big smile on. I know that publicly 2024 is considered one of the worst years in gaming ever. Here's a list of reasons why. But I don't want to talk about those things. I want to share with the world, as well as document here for myself, the fun I had with video games in 2024. Quick side note, Visions of Mana and Dragon Quest III HD 2D will not be on this list because I just got them for Christmas and have not played them enough to discuss them yet. With that out of the way, let's buckle up and let's go. I began 2024 doing a 100% marathon run of Super Mario Bros. Wonder. I found the game to be very fun mechanically, and the Wonder Fruit brought such creative innovation that the side-scrolling Super Mario Bros. Series has needed. I still felt bad giving it my time because the game just lacked any sort of depth to me. I wanted to hate Spider-Man 2 for its overly popular IP usage and stereotypical use of action game mechanics, but I just couldn't. Spider-Man 2 is just so good, it made me fall in love with action games as a whole. Its story and gameplay and exploration are all excellent, and it doesn't outstay its welcome. I love it. My Super Mario RPG video is one of my favorite things I've ever made and expresses my total thoughts on this game. I'm really not trying to self-promote here, but check that video out if you want to hear more. The TLDR is, I liked it, and I think it's worth your time. I ended up keeping my promise and beat Octopath Traveler 2 this year. I feel like it did tweak and improve from the first game, and despite various grind sessions, I loved it. That final boss was a pain though. Enjoy the Diner was absolutely not a game I wanted to play. I saw it highlighted in a direct and was like, cool, I want to watch a let's play of this in the background while I do chores. All I could find was this raw upload of the game and someone live translating the game from Japanese to English. This wasn't going to work. So I said, fine, I'll do it myself. I bought Zaxby's for dinner and stayed up past 3 a.m. making a let's play where I read every line of this visual novel. What I didn't expect is I ended up loving the game. It's creative, dark, and several plot twists gave me goosebumps. Please don't watch my let's play. Go out and try this game for yourself. It's worth it. Omori has become my favorite indie game of all time. I didn't realize it until sometime after I had beaten the game that it was a special game to me that will stick with me for the rest of my life as one of my favorite video games ever. Its story, music, sound effects, characters, artistic design, it's all just so iconic and I'm already nostalgic to it. It is a hard one to play through for multiple reasons, but I can't recommend it enough. Omori is also one of the reasons 2024 was so fun for me, because the new releases slowed down for me to play and enjoy games like this one. But man, the 2024 releases were so good too. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink was absolutely the game we needed in 2024. It shows that you can take this traditional anime JRPG aesthetic and combine it with modern day graphics and gameplay, and it works. There's two reasons it didn't make my top 5 though. Number 1, it was too easy. Min-maxing your characters made story missions a breeze. And number 2, it was too short. Granted, the post-game is a beast, but for me, I rolled credits on the story, then deleted the game off my hard drive, being perfectly content to move on. Returning to Final Fantasy XVI with this DLC reminded me of how much I actually liked the base game. I feel like I was too negative on it when it first came out because I was busy playing all these other games and I didn't want to set aside the time to play it. But Rising Tide in particular showed me how great it is, and I honestly think it will stand the test of time better than a lot of games today due to focusing on a self-contained story. I actually played Persona 3 on the PS2 not too long ago in 2015. I dropped it because it lacked several quality of life features for such a long game. Like, for instance, your party being exhausted and forcing you out of a dungeon long before you're finished with it. Reload fixes these issues for me, and it gave it a graphical facelift for modern day. It really clicked with me on this go around, and this was the closest game to making it in my top 5 from this list. Thanks for the birthday gift, Steven. Fate Stay Night was a video game on a tall list of games I want to play, but it's really difficult to play for some reason or another. So when I discovered they re-released this game on the Switch as a 20th anniversary edition, I instantly got it. It's not necessarily a game as it is a visual novel, and it really sticks to that novel part. You can really tell that every line of dialogue was thought about deeply, so it's no wonder such great video games and anime series are based off it. I used the gift card that my wife and kids got me for Father's Day to pay for it, so thanks fam. Your dad's a geek. Endless Ocean Luminous was such a splurge game for me. I had a day off and I knew I wanted to play this game that day and then never again. So I used the cashback money I had and made it happen. And yeah, it was a great day. This game is very much Aquarium, the video game, but it's done well and I enjoyed the descriptions they gave to each other 500 plus sea creatures. Stellar Blade, the game I won't play in front of my wife. I didn't expect to play this game this year, but ended up playing it while making this video, so adding it in here postscript. I don't believe this game merits the Game of the Year discussion some people give it, but it's a very unique and graphically impressive game. It was a Goldilocks action game for me. Not too easy, not too hard, but just right. Now it's time for a section called
Great 2024 Games I Don't Care About.
Elden Ring, Shadow of Erdtree DLC. Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3 Remastered. Helldivers 2. Silent Hill 2. Black Myth Wukong. This has been
Great 2024 Games I Don't Care About.
Nintendo World Championships NES Edition is the most upfront game ever. It's 150 snippets of old Nintendo games with a little bit of polish at a discounted price. You can decide for yourself if you love it or hate it. For me, I thought it was okay. If you've tried dating before, you've probably had a match where they check every single box you have, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with them, but you don't want to go on a second date, because let's face it, you're just not in love with them. That's how I feel about Trails Through Daybreak. Despite putting nearly 10 hours of effort, constantly forcing myself to go back to this game, it just didn't click with me, and it got dropped. This was supposed to be my first game into the Trails series, which I've really looked forward to getting into for a long time now, but I just don't know anymore. Trails fans, tell me in the comments, what should I do? Power World. I got excited while watching the September PlayStation State of Play where Power World was shadow dropped onto the PS5 that day. I bought it outright instantly in that excitement and regretted it. Power World is not a bad game, but it's a combination of game styles that I don't like. I almost always research a game before buying it to prevent something like this from happening, but I was like, cool, knockoff Pokemon with guns, and as anyone who's played it can tell you, it's not exactly that. I picked up Balatro after it received such a warm reception from the gaming community. It's a very fun, very addictive card-based engine builder that's also a roguelike. I pretty quickly cracked a winning solution for this game and had it beaten in about 3 hours, although your time may vary. I surprisingly found myself returning to this game periodically to try different builds or to play with other friends. It's a great, cheap game. I recommend it. Astrobot is an incredible, well-tuned 3D platformer. How often do you get to say that? Its attention to detail and love of all things PlayStation make it a gem among games. So much so, I asked my mom if I could get it as a Christmas gift in September, because I thought it might make the top 5 of this list. She, knowing how much this very video means to me, made it happen, but unfortunately, it didn't make the top 5. I 100%ed the game, but I was left with the same feeling Wonder left me with. Where's the depth. Maybe I'm too old for platformers now and I should just stick to my long, boring games instead. Or maybe, just maybe, it really is possible for a platformer to have depth and meaning. Animal Well is a platformer that has depth and meaning. It blindsided me when the review scores came out so overwhelmingly positive that I kind of trust fell into this game. No, its mechanics are not as solid as Wonder or Astrobot, but how they use those mechanics is so much better than those games. The puzzle solving is far more rewarding, and it has this crazy depth of story that is not explained in cutscenes, but is told contextually by what's going on around you. Animal Well deserves all the praise it gets. Now, before I get into my top 5 games, here are the games that I missed in 2024. I had to pass on Vengeance because I played the original Shin Megami Tensei 5 on Switch and hated how levels ended in stupidly hard boss fights. I'm fine with games using hard bosses to teach you how to use the tools you have to win, but Shin Megami Tensei says, you don't have the tools you need, go back out there, get them and level them up and then come back, and honestly, I couldn't go through that again. I was on the fence to begin with on Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, and when I saw that there wasn't a lot of improvements made to this re-release, I hopped off that fence back onto my side. I found Eiyuden Chronicles interesting as it pays homage to traditional JRPG series Suikoden, but it paid a little too much homage, sometimes taking long gaps between saves, and with my unpredictable gaming schedule, and sometimes only having 5 to 15 minutes to play, it did not work out for me. Echoes of Wisdom is a great Nintendo game, one that I was looking forward to coming out. It just came out later in the year, at a point where I was just done with the Switch. Listen, I made a whole video about this, and I know I'm ridiculous. I'm just exhausted of the system, and didn't want to make the journey back for Zelda. Maybe when the Switch 2 comes out. And now, for my top 5 games of 2024. This game has a story to it. Unicorn Overlord nearly got dropped multiple times for me. I was disappointed that it wasn't Vanillaware's story-heavy sequel to my 2020 Game of the Year, 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, but instead put its giant engine building mechanics front and center. As I played through its extensive demo, I kept figuring out more about its mechanics, and although I was still on the fence, I was still interested to learn more about the game by demo's end. On a hectic Sunday, I decided to get out of the house and visit GameStop. Their AC was out, but I still perused every single game they had, and that's when I stumbled across it. A new PS5 copy of Unicorn Overlord that they had marked down from $60 to $40 to get it off their shelf. I had my $5 off for being a pro member too, and they said,
"Your total is $34.99.
How many rewards points do I have?
Enough to get $8 off?"
Do it.
I bought a $60 game for $26.99. They said,
"We don't have any small bags to put this in. We only have the big ones."
Give me the big bag.
Admittedly, it still took me a while after I bought it for it to fully click with me. I had to look up videos that showed advanced mechanics before I really figured it out. I want to thank Clayton Morse's video in particular for giving me the final click I needed and putting the thought into my head, what if I platinum this game? I've never platinumed a game before, and that's what I'm still working on today. And I'm having a flipping blast doing it. I was tempted to make Splatoon 3 Side Order as my #1 game of the year just to make a point. This game is absolutely everything I wanted video games to be. It's half the cost of a full price game, granted it is DLC, and it's got that AAA love put into it, but it's not obsessed with hyper-realistic graphics. It's overflowing with creative art direction, and its gameplay is unique from its main story despite using the same mechanics engine. The most beautiful part is, it's not insanely long. You'll feel satisfied when you roll credits on this roguelike, but then it encourages you to beat it again and again with different weapons and settings, where if you choose to, you'll spend just as much time as a full-blown game. But that's the beauty of it. No matter how long you play it, you feel satisfied without buyer's remorse, and it's what you want it to be. As someone who stinks at Splatoon, I enjoyed slowly working through its levels until I accomplished a winning run, although I will warn that hardcore players may find it too easy. What an incredibly solid, fun gaming experience Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door was. It felt so good to pick up the controller for this game. It brought back those Nintendo feels I haven't had since I was a kid. It has such rich dialogue and is such a visual touch-up from the original GameCube version. My only negative is I wish it sold better so Nintendo would make more games like this. Wow, what a birthday gift. Thanks, love. And now, before I discuss my top 2 favorite games of the year, allow me to discuss my worst game of the year. Princess Peach Showtime for the Nintendo Switch. Not that it's a bad game per se, but it goes against Nintendo's philosophy of scaling difficulty. Normally, a child can pick up a Nintendo game and waddle themselves through to see the credits, but to 100% that game and do everything in it, it is going to take an adult or someone with serious skill. Showtime is not like this. It's a kid's game, period. Even my 4-year-old niece can tell that this game is talking down to her and she prefers to play other games instead. And now, with that out of the way, my top 2. Before I gush positives about this game, I want to address the negatives. Rebirth's pacing is too slow. You probably didn't hear me right. I didn't say this game is too long. It's actually quite reasonable. It's the amount of time they take to do things in order to maintain this realism that's the problem. Quick example. This is how long it takes to drive a buggy. And this is how long I want it to take. There are fair complaints about this game's ending, but personally I disagree with them. To me, this game is clearly a part 2 of 3, and I trust Fall on this team to answer our unanswered questions in the 3rd game. Speaking of stories, this is one of the best stories in video games this year. The main plot is easy to follow with an emotional depth, as well as each character getting their own story moments that excel. Graphically, the game looks insane. It runs well and proves that hyper-stylized anime characters can look great with realistic graphics. It's both detailed and massive, yet your character can blast themselves through these environments. It made me go, whoa, this is the next generation of gaming. A PS4 can't do this. Surprisingly though, its gameplay was my favorite part. Tweaking Remake's system and making it far more enjoyable, I 100%ed this game not because I set out to, but because its side content was so enriching and its mechanics are so fulfilling, I kind of just couldn't help myself from doing it. The moment that the credits rolled, I knew I had just finished my game of the year. I've never been more happy to be more wrong. Metaphor ReFantazio is everything I love about gaming, put into one game. Its story is deep, but not full of itself or overly complicated. It pulls the great turn-based battle system from Shin Megami Tensei series with the weakness break system from Persona to create a new system all of its own. Exploring its dungeons are a treat, and they are unapologetic about their size. There are so many smaller character moments that happen between these dungeons that are well written, and they are an enjoyable little treat. The best compliment I can give this game is its art direction. Good art direction is better than good graphics. Not to say Metaphor shouldn't have better graphics. That's my only criticism with this game. Rebirth and Relink showed you can have incredible art direction with incredible graphics, yet Metaphor seems cheap in comparison. It should have better graphics. But with both Relink and Rebirth, their art direction tends to end at certain points, especially if you begin to look past their character designs. Yet every single corner and small gap of Metaphor is filled with art direction. The atmosphere, the menus, and even just pausing the game. Extreme thought went into making every aspect of this game look as cool as possible. As someone who champions games to be smaller like Side Order, I know it's hypocritical of me to make such a large game like Metaphor my #1 game of the year. I hate the thought that for me and other gamers, it seems the more time you spend with a game, the higher you rank it. But the truth is, every single time I picked up the controller with Metaphor, I had fun. And I continued to have fun right up until I put down my controller. It didn't matter how long or short the session was, I always had a blast. That is a feat no other game on this list achieved, and that's why Metaphor ReFantazio is my game of the year for 2024. Thanks for listening to me. I love you. And cheers to 2025.